Hello and welcome to this episode of Mind the Gap, making education work across the globe with me, Tom Sherrington, and Emma Turner. Hello, Emma.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Sonia.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Tracey. Hi, Sonia. We're really delighted to have on our show today sisters. It's a sister act. There's a big reveal. If you didn't know that before, we are breaking the news. Sonia Thompson and Tracey Adams are not only colleagues, but they are sisters. It's an amazing thing. And they also a dream team author duo who have just written this fantastic book that I'm holding up.
Holding up mine too. An
Ethic of Excellence in Action. Let's all show them. Come on. It's the big moment. So we're going to talk in this episode about the latest in the In Action series that I'm very proud to be the editor of. And Sonia and with Tracey and some other colleagues have put together this fantastic take on Ron Berger's excellent work. But let's just talk about you being sisters. So thank you for joining our show. What's it like working together and being in the same family? Let's start with Tracey. Let's ask you first.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant, and it's been a journey. It's been a journey. You obviously know each other in a family capacity, but it's different when you begin to work with somebody. And for me, I have so much respect for Sonia, and she's inspirational as my leader, as the leader of my school. And I've had to, it's been a journey getting to that point where, oh yeah, I do have to listen to her because actually, so because obviously you have different dynamics outside of school and how we interact and how we talk and discuss things outside of school. So I think we've really got to a place where we can work with each other, we can disagree without becoming disagreeable, and we can move away from the situation and have some time to just reflect and come back, and very quickly come back and just move it forward. Because I think we're both focused. To be fair, my dream always as a teacher, I've been teaching for 25 years now, and I've always wanted to work with somebody who is passionate and really cares about the children. And that coming to St Matthew's and then joining Sonia as her deputy, that's what she's all about. So I'm in my happy place. I'm working with somebody who really cares about changing children's lives. And if that means working with my sister, then I'll do it.
So you were the one that joined, Sonia. So you must have known going into it, the whole deal. So you kind of knew what it was going to be a bit like.
Yeah.
Sonia, what's it like for
Sonia was working there, and obviously a spot came up for a teacher, and I knew what I was signing up for. So yeah, I wanted to join the school and work with her. And
Sonia, what was it like for you? Was it an obvious thing to? It must have been slightly awkward on the application form business.
Yeah, Tracey actually joined when we had another head. So I was the deputy. We had a head, and Tracey came in as an assistant head. So we worked together for about 7 years, 8 years beforehand as deputy and assistant head. And then when I got the headship role, Tracey applied for the deputy headship role and we got it. I think Tracey's kind of summed it up. We are so driven by what we've got to do. We do fall in and fall out all the time. We are. I'm the oldest, by the way. I know I don't look the oldest, but I am the oldest. So sometimes you've got to pull rank. But she's very good. She's just such a good deputy. She's the deputy that you'd want in your school. She's passionate. She's hardworking, and she's a fantastic teacher. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because she is my sister. She is, that kind of teaching role model who wants to keep learning and moving things forward. So I think between the two of us, we're able to move things forward, I think. And I don't think being sisters, we're very conscious that we can't, people don't know, they know now, but people don't really know. They know in school, but other people, we don't say it. Because we are very conscious that it feels a bit, oh God, sisters, oh, that's how they work. But so we are very conscious that we don't kind of shout about it. But hopefully the work that we do does the talking rather than us being any kind of nepotism between the two of us.
I'd say it does.
Question. Tom, I found out the other day talking to Mary and Sonia on a different interview about Tracey and Sonia being sisters, and my very first question was, who's the oldest one? What's the dynamic there? But I'm just delighted that both of you are here on the eve of International Women's Day as well, 2 women in leadership, so it's absolutely wonderful to talk to you. But my question about being sisters in the workplace, sorry for the kind of the sibling thing to dominate the start of the discussion, but are you able to have discussions with each other in a way that you potentially wouldn't be able to have a discussion with another member of staff? Are you able to be kind of more direct with each other behind closed doors than you would be necessarily with a colleague who wasn't a member of the family?
I think we are. I think we have some quite very direct conversations, and we can kind of hash things out behind closed doors. And as I said, we do fall out. We fall out, you know, like as sisters, we fall out. But then we remember that we're colleagues as well, and we've got to sort this out and get moving forward. So it's an interesting dynamic that we have. I don't know about you, Tracey. I don't know if you. I think we're better. We get better.
And I think one of the things that we've been able to do, probably more so than you can do, is really be clear about what we're both good at as well. So I think we've because we know each other so well, we're able to be really supportive with that and pick up each other's slack in terms of, because we know each other as sisters, and I suppose that does have an impact on how we kind of work together. But I think as you said, we've kind of developed a really good relationship where I'm sure you'd fall out with I've worked in other schools and I've seen heads and deputies fall out. That happens because you might have a disagreement, but I think it's about then it still comes back to being professional, being colleagues, knowing how to bring it back together, focusing on what was the priority or what was the problem that we were trying to overcome, and taking it back to that rather than personalities. And we're good at that. We're good at overcoming the personalities that can sometimes come into play with any discussion, any kind of challenge, and go back to actually let's focus on the priority that we're trying to do.
Well, that's fantastic. I think everyone has their own sort of sibling relationships, and I don't think my brother would like working with me very much. He's the one that gives me advice when I haven't asked for it. I take it. Tom, if I was you, I'd take that tweet down. I wouldn't leave that up. I'm going, who asked you? But anyway, it takes different dynamics. Well, let's talk about it, because for people who don't know, because lots of people may not, but we got sent a photograph. I say we. I'm talking about Sonia now. About a few weeks ago, and it was it was 2 years since I first met you. So I thought, gosh, it's only 2 years, and that was at an event where we were both speakers, and it was the first time I'd met you. And about 2 weeks later, it was COVID lockdown, and I'd forgotten. Because so much has been packed into those 2 years. That time sort of stretched out. And so I feel like I've known you for a lot longer.
I know, yeah.
And that story that you've told in the interim, and it's a growing story around St Matthew's, an incredible primary school in Birmingham, and all the way that you blend the knowledge-rich curriculum, the research engagement, but also this whole focus on reading, on empathy. You teach Latin. You got this. It's just an amazing place. And in those 2 years, has your school sort of developed a kind of? It's like, I feel like it's sort of famous. Has it got a kind of? Has it attracted attention for people for coming to see things since then?
I don't know, if you're Twitter famous, is that famous? I'm not sure if Twitter famous is famous.
Let's pretend it is. Let's pretend it is.
The profession that don't know us. So I think what we pride ourselves on is that we're beyond just the show, and there is some really strong practice and strong foundations at St Matthew's. And I think even through the really difficult times, because we have laid such strong foundations, and it's been, we've gone on a journey and we're still on that journey. It means that we have been able to kind of cement our reputation for being a school that really cares about its children and will do, and not that other schools don't care, but will do whatever we can do in order for them to find success and to be as richly fed in primary as they can be. And that's a kind of our mission to do that. And I think we're reasonably successful at that, I think.
So you had some visitors. I mean, and it's interesting. Do you feel like your teachers, you're used to having people come in to see them then?
Oh, they are. They're very very laid back now. They can have. We had a whole school come to us today. Teachers and TAs and teach direct students as well, and they wanted to look at Talk for Writing and see how we embedded it. They're at the start of their journey, so they wanted to show the teachers what the kind of, it's not the end journey, but a couple of years down the road what it could potentially look like. So we had what we do when we do a session with schools is that we do a bit of input about the school, about Talk for Writing, and then we actually let them go and wander. So they can go into any classrooms. We kind of ban them from certain places, say don't go in there, don't go in there, but then we let them go free. And I think they appreciate that, and we're very honest about things that are not working. We say, you know, it's not, don't look at that, don't look. But I think they appreciate the fact that we don't try and hide anything, but we're very clear. Then we bring them back and go through some key principles for how we've moved things forward. So it's a real mix of being quite deliberate about the visit, as well as giving people a bit of freedom to see and move through classes as well.
And I think as a school, I think we've over time we've learned so much from other people that actually we see almost like a moral purpose, really, to be supportive, to be open, to share what the journey that we've been on and said, and to share the ups, as Sonia said, and the downs of the journey, in the hope that we can help. Because I think again, going back to this idea of being so passionate about education, for myself, there was nothing else I wanted to be but being a teacher. And my parents talk about me putting my bears on the stairs and teaching them, and I used to take a register, and there's nothing more that I wanted to do than be a teacher. So for me, it's at the core that even though it might not be my school that will benefit from this visit, you know, it's great to know that the talk, what we shared, sharing a book, sharing a piece of research, an idea, some practice, will help to move another school forward and support them on their journey to improving what they offer to their children. And as I say, when I was even this in the afternoon, when I was delivering some training around implementation, I had to say to the cohort that the things that you're telling me, I'm taking on board. I've been writing down things as we've been having discussion. You can't ever stop learning. And I think that's really important. So that's why it's great that we open up our school to other people.
That's a really good, amazing point as well, Tracey, because I've been on so many school visits, you know, taking colleagues to see other places, and so many schools are tempted to try and paint themselves in this really light where, you know, every corner you look in is pristine. That's really not helpful to a school that's trying to move itself forward. They need to see that real implementation takes time, doesn't happen, you know, across the phases equally or across all classrooms equally, and that there are stages that a school will go through. And even a school that's performing at such a level like yours, you know, there's still places where there's work to do, or there's bits to tinker with, and there's bits to refine, but also there's some really great stuff. And I think it's so empowering for schools who come to visit other great schools to see what's working really well, but also the honesty about sharing. You know, we're all on this learning journey, like you say, and not everything is going to be absolutely fantastic all of the time. There are places where, like you say, you don't want to go just yet.
In a kind of meta kind of way, it kind of relates to the book, then, doesn't it? Let's talk about it now, because I feel like that's been a journey in itself. So for me, just inviting you to contribute to the walkthroughs was a start, and then and the most recent one, but then the In Action series. And when I suggested doing the Ron Berger, you were just like, oh yeah, can I? Like, yeah, like straight in.
Yeah.
And I was looking, oh, I didn't really expect that so much. So I was thinking, you know, and you just were all over it, and then you've had contact, and Ron Berger's been excited himself, and his enthusiasm for it has been really brilliant. And it's just so great to have followed your journey with the writing of it, the toing and froing. And I've hardly done anything except sort of look at it and sort of check in. But you've been through this whole writing process and finally have your own book, and it's great that you're both in it. You've written. So let's just tell us a bit about the story and writing it and contacting Ron and everything. Let's hear you. How did it all get going?
I think when you asked me, it was so exciting because this An Ethic of Excellence, Ron Berger's book, has been, as I said it in the book, it's kind of a seminal soundtrack to my teaching. And I think he just epitomizes what we as a school are striving for, that excellence for our children, and this idea that actually we can push them beyond what they think is possible. We are in one of the most deprived areas in Britain, in Birmingham. And I think, you know, this idea, I always say it, that our children are not deficit. Because that could potentially be me. We're from up the road from where we teach. So it is, you know, it's so, he just epitomizes what we wanted to do as a school, and what we want to do, what we're striving to do. So it was really exciting to be asked. And I think Ron himself, when I contacted him, just the humility of somebody who, you know, has produced this book that so many people across the world talk about, even if they haven't kind of read the book, everybody knows Austin's Butterfly. And I think that the idea that this person is, that the humility, how humble he is, how really grounded he is in the wider implications of Austin's Butterfly, not just as a thing about critique. And I think that was probably the real turning point for me, my understanding of just how deep this book is, An Ethic of Excellence, was Ron really saying that it's this metaphor for children being enabled to do the very best that they can do. And it's a metaphor for schools to say, we're not going to accept that level, we're going to push them a little bit further and a little bit further because they're capable of it. And I just think that is such a brilliant message. And it just punctuates everything in our school. So it was really exciting to get the SLT involved in writing it. So yeah, it was brilliant to be asked.
And it's not it, because the other thing we weren't sure how this would play out, but it's turned out beautifully, is that all the other inaction books sort of take a researcher's work, like an academic researcher who's done some studies, like, you know, my one, Rosenshine, or Dan Whittingham, or Dylan William and other people. Although Dan Whittingham, his book, he's referenced in all of them, but his book isn't, he hasn't done his, but say, I mean, I could name any of them. Cognitive load theory.
Yeah.
And yours is, like, Ron Berger isn't an academic researcher.
Oh.
So it was like a flip, wasn't it? It was almost, yeah. So you went out to sort of almost like evidence the book. So how did you go about doing that?
I think, again, because we are a school that is so passionate about being evidence informed. We are a research school, so, you know, an EEF, Education Endowment Foundation research school. I think as you read Ron Berger's book, and as we, you know, as I reread it, and as we reread it, we're like, oh my God, that links to that. That links to that. Yeah. That just links to that. That links to that. So it's easy to link in what he says to the evidence. And I think the more you read it, the more, I mean, there could have been so much more evidence we could have put in there, and examples from other writers who've referenced Ron Berger, because he's so heavily referenced by other writers and other practitioners and consultants and everybody really, that there could have been more. So it just, once you read a bit, you think, oh, that links to that, that links to that. So it was reasonably easy to do that, I think, to make those links.
And I think that's the beauty of his book, really, the fact that he wasn't thinking in that way yet. His ideas are so evidence informed. So actually it was great to be able to kind of find the research and say, gosh, that links to that. And I think as you were saying, it was very much as we started to unpick it, because we started off by just having some meetings together and just talking it through and beginning to kind of map out where could we go with our chapters and what do we want to say and what do we want to leave the reader with. And as we just started talking together, we would, you know, each of us would say, oh, this links to that and that's perfect for that. And it was just it was kind of organic, wasn't it, how it started to grow and how we kind of were able to draw on references from training that we've delivered, from guidance documents, and be able to really pull that in. So it was actually a really exciting part of the part of writing the book.
You really pushed the John Catt guys to the limit, because you insisting that there are all these pictures in it. So, you know, like they were going, oh, I don't know about that, and they're like, well, no, there has to be pictures, photos.
Yeah.
You've got photographs of kids' work, the artwork in the appendix is just, oh my god, it's just amazing. And pictures of kids' work. Tracey, I wanted to ask you, if I can, about this idea of tributary work, because that's in your chapter about models. So how does that work? Do you use models like this in your teaching? How do you do that?
The idea of tributary work is it's about that we want to share an exemplar with the children that they can use as a model, but we want to take them on a journey. So when we offer them it's almost like an exemplar of an answer or an idea or a design or something that or how to solve a problem. We're kind of taking them on this journey from dependence on us to independence, but it's almost like a stage in that journey where actually they've got something to hang their hat on. They've got something that we can pull apart together and say that this is where you're trying to go. Have a go first at trying to emulate this. Have a go at trying to see what you can pull out from this. And then as they begin to unpick that and see what are the key elements within, for example, for me, I love maths. Maths is better than reading, everything else. I'm just going to put that out there.
Tracey, I love you. I'm just going to put that out there.
When you think about getting children to problem solve, sometimes they need to hear the expert kind of breaking down the journey with this problem, but they also need to see what you actually have done with that problem, how you've broken it down. And for me, that could be an example of it, the children then having a go at kind of emulating that exact example and having a go at that. That's tributary work for me. But then when you move it on further and you move them to independence and you give them a variety of problems, they've got to then bring in the knowledge that they've learned from that piece to be able to move to excellence with another problem. So I think it's a part of that. As I'm talking, I'm thinking about that 7-step model in the EEF and metacognition guidance document, where you talk about taking them from your closely focusing on your scaffolded work and really scaffolding them to then releasing them. And I think tributary work sits within there.
Is that a concept that Emma, that kind of model?
Yeah, and it's something that we do really well in primary, very often in modelled writing, and it doesn't necessarily always make the leap to the wider curriculum, and it's so powerful, but somehow it gets lost in translation sometimes, that it sits only with guided writing or modelled writing.
Absolutely.
You can do it for any subject.
Yeah.
And that translation of that approach is so important. And I say it just ends up being a mistrip, but expert narration in mathematical modelling and problem solving is as skillful and as beautiful as the person who can model the craft of writing. And I'm hugely interested in, across the primary curriculum. My colleague Adele does it beautifully with art, the way that she does the kind of tributary work from exploring line and tone and colour and getting the children to model and do the tributary work for that, right through to doing that final piece. It's just, it's a real skill in itself, is that exploration of that modelling.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think, like, one of the things I think is, again, unique to this book is it's like a kind of, you use your own school as a sort of, as a kind of, a symbol of it all, but a kind of example of like a case study of itself, saying, especially around the cultural aspects, because this is what I love about Ron Berger. He kind of, sometimes education research gets a bit sort of nerdy and a bit sort of technical. And he sort of bigs up the culture comes first, this idea of lifting people up and creating a culture. But then that does need technical things like modeling and critique. And then there's a precision to it. That's what I love. It's so clever. It's sort of, it's not a choice between them. So Sonia, what do you think about that? That kind of, I mean, that culture, and it's in your first chapter in the book, you know, it's called The First Toolbox, A School Culture of Excellence. How have you gone about developing that?
And I think the idea of culture, I think more and more writers, trainers are really pushing it to the forefront. I think the MPQs have been probably the biggest thing that have moved culture right to the heart of all of the MPQs kind of start with culture, because we know that that is the kind of foundational bit. You lay down your markers as a school on what your expectations are for your children through your culture, through the way that you reveal to the children every day what you think they can achieve. And I just think if your culture says to your children, and what's brilliant about Ron Berger is that his work goes across every phase. It's nursery to sixth form. If you lay down a marker of excellence for your children, then it's about them being able to aspire to that, and teachers being able to aspire to that excellence all the time. And it is really grounded in that culture. So even the idea, and again, I know that lots of people talk about behaviour and behaviours, but one of the things that we've really focused in on is getting our learning behaviours right. And even today, when we had our visitors, they said, wow, your children are really full. It was hard to see a child that wasn't focused. If you asked me to point out the SEND children, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And that's because we have really, really focused in on what good learning behaviours look like. We do lots of kind of leveraged leadership methods, and we map out routines and systems, and we look at predictable routines and patterns because we want optimum teaching time. And I think that's key for us. If children are in areas of high disadvantage, we know that there's gaps. We want optimal teaching time, and we don't want things like behaviour to limit what we can do in a day. So it is about getting those systems and routines right so that we can be as deliberate about our practice, as creative about our practice, because we love being creative. So we can do all of those things, but that comes off the back of having a really good culture. And what I love about Ron is just that the little bits about schools being tidy and things like that, and that as a message. You know, I think it's important that children see that you care about the space that they're in, and you want them to care about the space that they're in. So I think even things like that are just so powerful. So as I said, it's just, I think culture as one puts it right at the centre and the heart of the ethic. And I think that's the rightful place for it.
I don't know whether Sonia, you basically think the same thing, but one of the things I like about his book is that it sings about caring about children. And sometimes when you read academic research or other research papers or other books, that doesn't jump off the page necessarily. But I think from what I know about your school and from talking to the two of you, that seems to align so much with the way that you approach your work personally and for the school. I'm just wondering if it was that element that made that so attractive for you, for an area of focus for your work in your school, that idea of that real sense of care that comes across in what he's doing.
Absolutely. And I think it's this idea as well that children learn best when they feel safe. And actually they feel safe when the routines and the systems that you have in place are predictable, that they, you know, that they will thrive in an environment where they know what's coming up, where they know what's expected of them, and they feel that sense of care from their teachers. So very much kind of sings with what we believe in terms of the atmosphere and the culture that we're trying to create in our schools.
So I want to ask you about, and it's really, I mean, because you're all in your teaching is this tension between lifting children up by showing them what to do and giving them models, and them doing it on their own. And I feel like when I'm watching a lot of, I spend more than half the days I'm in schools now, is in primary schools, watching lots of writing and modeling and so on. And I think this is one of the things where I think teachers are sort of going, yeah, like, do I lift you up high and show you and give you some structures and get you to kind of emulate them and borrow them and do lots of that? Or should I just rely on you using your own words? And I think there's a real, I sense teachers sort of sometimes, I sometimes think they go too quickly to the, oh, that's great, look how good you are coming up with that on your own. And I'm thinking, yeah, but if you'd shown them that more sophisticated structure and they practiced it a few times, they might have started to use that. And I saw a teacher recently do this brilliant lesson in Tottenham, just around the corner from me, where she was saying, every time a child answered a question in this year 5 class, when they're talking about tourism on Snowdon, they said, well, on one hand, I think it would be a good idea, but on the other hand, and they all said it like that because they were all practicing saying that. I thought, see, you're really getting them to do stuff which they wouldn't otherwise do. I mean, is that a tension you experience all the time, or is it just, do you feel like you always push it higher? Who should I ask that to, Sonia?
I suppose it is. It definitely is a tension for us, and you know, we've said, gosh, are we overdoing the kind of structures around our writing? Is there a space to kind of loosen up and enable that creativity? And what we've really been thinking about is how much of our children's identity is part of their writing. So even things like putting their own names into their own writing, writing about their own local area. Do we take them so far away from that they don't even feel confident enough to write about themselves? So we've kind of tried to bring those elements in, but we are quite focused on the process of writing, for instance, that we've got. And as I said, we use Talk for Writing, but we're very clear about, I think that one of the strengths of what Pi Corbett's done, for instance, is that he's created these training centres who have innovated on his work. So you've got schools who are mixing and matching. We use a lot of Bob Cox's work, who's put together some really gorgeous books around classic poetry and prose. And the challenge and the opportunities to read lots of other texts, I think is just invaluable for children. And I think it really, for me, I don't think we can take it down. You can't. I think the opportunities to lift the children and to get them to read and think and experience things that they wouldn't experience. There's things that they can't experience without our support. And I think it's those opportunities that have enabled our children to be confident writers and speakers and performers, and I think all of that, and readers and children that love reading with agency and not pick up a book just because we tell them to. I think those are because of the challenges and the experiences that we enable them to have. So I think there is a tension, but I think it can be worked through.
And I'll add on to that it's actually about that, bringing in this idea of research. It's about putting children in that sweet spot, isn't it? And understanding what is the challenge that we're trying to get from them. But then alongside that challenge, what are the tools that we need to give them or have around them to support them to engage with that challenge? And it's very much about what I'm going to speak on tomorrow, about that struggle. How do we put children in that place where they can struggle, but we give them the tools to be able to struggle? And I think modelling, explaining the exemplars, the tributary work, it takes children to a place where you can then really challenge them, but they've still got a lot of scaffolds to support them with that challenge.
It's a bit like, for me, and I don't know whether Sonia and Tracey, you think the same thing, it's a bit like stabilisers on a bike. If you don't put the stabilisers on the bike, the kid's never going to get from A to B. Put the stabilisers on the bike, they can explore the whole little world on their bike, and they'll probably be inspired to learn to ride the bike properly as well. They've seen an experience with their stabilisers on. So if you don't put the stabilisers on, they're just going to keep falling off. It's the scaffolding and the modelling is to help them get going, and then there will come a point where you take them off, but unless they've had them on in the first place, they never get to explore the richness of the kind of the landscape that's out there. how I always see it. I don't know whether that's how you see it.
No, that sums it up, Emma. That's brilliant. Yeah.
You know, one of my favourite things, I sort of mentioned it in one of my books, but it's something, sometimes when I tell the story and I'm doing training, I kind of even well up retrospectively, because when I taught my daughter to ride a bike, it literally, we went to the park just over there and it was stabilizers off day, and I was running around holding the back of her saddle and then chasing after it, and then she said, "You can let go now, Dad." And I already had.
Yeah. Oh wow.
It's like, I already have. I was like, oh yes, you can ride.
Oh.
It's just like a great moment. You can let go now, Dad. And I already had. That was just so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, what a great analogy.
Yeah.
But that's what Rob was saying. He's sort of saying that thing of once a child, I love this. Once a child has experienced excellence, they get a taste for it and they never want anything less.
Yeah.
And I feel like that taste of excellence, now let's show them. It's like, you know, take them to the top of the mountain and get them to see what it looks like. And next time they'll get there on their own. But you have to get them up there first and show them, rather than just saying, "Oh, never mind, poor you only got up to here." And
absolutely,
yeah, it's a lovely view up there. If only you could see. We could go analogy crazy on this.
It's like when we decided that we wanted to introduce dual coding and kind of Pavio's kind of dual coding. And we'd watched Adam Boxer's video and we said, God, can we do this in primary? Because actually this is really good. And it links really closely to Talk for Writing, because it's about images and words and putting that together. And we kind of took ourselves on the journey of understanding it and going through it and modeling it in our training and then having a go. And what come out of that is some beautiful work from year ones, dual coding, and we've videoed that, and Tracey's going to show a brilliant video tomorrow of a child that went home and did some work, some geography work around vocations
and the mantle,
and he got his parents to video him dual coding that. And I just think if you put limits on what children can do, it's just, you know, Ron Berger kind of sums it up. You just can't do that. There's so much possibility. And as he said, you got to look at excellence, and that's what you've got to be strive for. And I think you can achieve it. You can achieve it.
We've got to challenge them. We've got to challenge them. And I think that's one of the things about our children, is that they want to be challenged. They're so open for it, because we're always pushing them. They're bursting for, you know, I want to show you this. I want to read this. Can I be a part of that? They're bursting for that now. And I think it's because we've stretched them, but we've thought about the stabilizers. I love this analogy. I've just written it.
We're going to be using that. That's the next one.
Full reference to
there you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
For people who wonder, you're talking about tomorrow. I mean, tomorrow, Tracey, you're joining me for curriculum masterclasses. We're both doing in fact, it's a quite good day of challenge, because I'm talking a little about teaching to the top and how you can balance that with supporting. And Ian Warwick's coming on. He's sort of well known for talking about, you know, real super high challenge, and you're bringing a challenge as well. And by the end of May, how can I say, all three of you will have featured on curriculum masterclasses. So I'm going for the full set here.
Is that the Tour de France? If we all talk about bikes.
Yes. Got to mention it now.
The educational peloton.
Yes. Look, I'm going to do a little test here, because wear your cap with pride. Okay, so cap, Sonia, what's the cap?
That's courage, attainment, pride. And it's about, we always say to our children, you've got to be courageous learners and push yourself beyond what you think is possible. Attainment, and we always say to our children, we're here to achieve results. You know, amongst everything else, that's what's going to take us forward. And then pride, we always say we're proud of ourselves, proud of each other, proud of our teachers, proud of our community, and proud of St Matthew's. So we just tell the children to put their caps on, wear their caps with pride, and they'll walk up to me and say, "Miss, I've got my cap on." I said, "Oh, that's great." So it is, and we've got our Latin phrase, "Gere Pilium."
Let's hear it in Latin.
Gere Pilium cum dignate. Yeah.
I just think it's great. Gere Pilium cum dignate.
Yeah.
And that means wear your cap with dignity. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. It's amazing. Well, honestly, I mean, we didn't even talk about reading yet, but you know, we could. It's like
have them back. Let's have them back. Let's have them back.
I just think you're both just extraordinary, and I just everything about it, like the knowledge that you bring and the kind of the expertise, but also the passion and the commitment, and you're doing the job every day. I mean, it's just so inspiring. So it's been a real pleasure, hasn't it? I mean, Emma, we both had a chat. We both have this joy of sitting, but it's been amazing, hasn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. It's been a joy to meet you, Tracey, and thanks again, Sonia, for it's always a pleasure to hear from you. So what a lucky school and what lucky children. That's all I can say. What lucky children have the parents.
Thank you.
So look, thanks so much again to Tracey Adams and Sonia Thompson, both of them working Sisters in Action at Birmingham.
I like that.
In action book.
So thanks to everyone who's listening to our podcast and on YouTube. This is Mind the Gap, making education work across the globe with me, Tom Sherrington and Emma Turner. And we'll see you again very soon. Thank you very much, everybody.